coachable are you? If your answer is, I'm incredibly coachable, I'm not sure I could be any more coachable, then you're probably not as coachable as you think, because you've got this fixed mindset of you being coachable. That's carved in stone, and you're going to be defensive if someone says you're not coachable. That's the definition of not being coachable. So even if you are coachable, you believe you're coachable, how could you improve? Leaders that aren't as coachable as they should be hold themselves back, their teams back, and their companies back. They're not open to new ideas. You may ask for feedback, but you do it as a technique because you believe you know all the answers. You're not spending as much time as you should learning and growing over time. You may be holding on to old ideas that just aren't working. You may get discouraged and blame failure on other people or on circumstance. And you may be modeling not being coachable for the rest of your team. So, what does it mean to be coachable? And as I go through this list of the 5 things it takes to be coachable, I want you to think of not where you're failing and where you're succeeding, but what of those 5 things should you be working more on? Number 1, if you're coachable, you have an internal locus of control. Locus is a fancy word for center of control. An internal locus of control means you make things happen. An external locus of control says things happen to you. If you've got an external locus of control, you're not very coachable because you believe you are a victim to the situation. If you've got an internal locus of control, you are in control. You make things happen. That's the foundation for being coachable. How open are you to asking for and receiving feedback? That takes vulnerability. That takes the willingness, the desire to actually hear what may be hard to hear without defensiveness. So number 1, do you have an internal locus of control? Number 2, are you open to asking for and receiving feedback? Number 3, do you have a growth mindset? The opposite of a growth mindset is a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset says your qualities are carved in stone, and that means you've got a need to prove yourself over and over again. A growth mindset says you believe that you and others have the ability to change. A growth mindset drives you to have a dedication to learning and growing, reading, listening to podcasts, going to conferences, being part of mastermind groups. So number 1, internal locus of control. Number 2, an openness to asking for and receiving feedback. Number 3, a growth mindset. And number 4 is a willingness and a desire to take action. Now, to have that, you've got to combine your growth mindset with a strong belief in a brighter future. If you believe things suck and they're always going to suck, you're not going to have a real willingness to take action. If you believe in a brighter future, and by the way, it doesn't necessarily mean you have this clear vision of your future. I have a 5-year plan with 12 steps. It doesn't mean that. It just means you have a belief in a brighter future that drives you, along with a growth mindset, to having a willingness and desire to take action. That's number 4. And number 5 is a willingness to be held accountable for taking or not taking that action. And that loops back to feedback. You've got to be open to asking for and receiving that feedback. Open to someone saying, hey, remember that thing you said you were going to do? You're not doing it. Or remember that thing you said you weren't going to do in meetings anymore? Well, you just did it again. So you've got to be open to receiving feedback. And it's more than an openness. You have to thank people for that feedback, whether you agree with them or not. If you agree with some feedback that people give you and other people give you feedback and you say nothing or you disagree with them, people are going to stop giving you feedback if you've disagreed. But when you take that feedback and you, with honesty, And integrity, thank them for that feedback, because whether you agree with it or not, they cared enough to give you that feedback. So you've got to thank them. So which of these 5 things do you need to work on? Having an internal locus of control, an openness to asking for and receiving feedback, growth mindset, willingness and desire to take action, or a willingness to be held accountable. What's the one most important thing for you to take action on today?